You want a war? You're gonna get one.
Forget the lies, the money. We're in this together and through it all. They said that nothing's forever, and they refuse to see the change in me. Why won't they wake up? Come on, come on, come on. Let's get out into the music. Play that fucking music. Live through my music, yeah.
Welcome back to Reliving the War and welcome to December 15th, 1997. We have another landmark week in the world of pro wrestling. The WWF and WCW have some potentially game-changing announcements. Raw's War in the Warzone comes from Durham, New Hampshire, while Nitro's live in Flair Country, Charlotte, North Carolina. Nitro's also a 3-hour show this week, so let's quickly go over the first 60 minutes of Nitro before comparing both shows. Mike Tenay's looking at Tony Schiavone as if to say, "Tell him, Tony, go tell him, let him know, tell him, Tony." Schiavone senses Tenay's excitement, so he goes ahead and he says it. Bret the Hitman Hart is in the Independence Arena tonight, and Bret Hart will be part of this WCW Nitro telecast. The commentators hope a big question gets answered later. Has Bret Hart already joined the NWO, or will Bret Hart fight the good fight? Speaking of the NWO, the boys come out to cut a promo. There's no Kevin Nash, but we have Masahiro Chono. Vincent's got a pair of binoculars and he's pretending to look for Sting, but he's really looking out for any spots of jam in the arena. If the Hitman's here tonight, he should be standing with the New World Order. Bischoff thanks Chono-san for showing up tonight, and Chono says a few words in Japanese, but look at these sick NWO shades he's got on. Those look great. Kurt Hennig says Ric Flair's going to get in the cage with him at Starrcade, and Kurt says history will be made on the 28th of December. Kurt says he wants to retire Slick Rick at the pay-per-view. Hogan says the exact same thing he's been saying for weeks and weeks now. Sting's too afraid to come out and stand face to face with Hollywood. Hulk says he's going to search the whole arena tonight, and if the number one contender gets found, then Sting will be stung. Not even kidding, this is the same thing we've been hearing over and over again. And you know, the TV ratings show us that it worked. We can't really argue that, but it wasn't going to work forever. Vincent then put down his binoculars and he had a match with Traylor, a match that Vincent lost, of course. The Bossman Slam puts Vincent down for the 1-2-3, or the Traylor Spike, whatever you want to call it. Raven's flock took their seats during this match, and it looks like Raven isn't here again tonight. WCW then aired a promo video for the Battle of the Giants, Nash vs Giant at Starrcade. If you didn't know, this match doesn't actually happen, but we'll cover all that in the upcoming Starrcade 1997 video. The Nitro girls then dance at the commentary tables after the hype video, and Zbyszko says this right here is why he's going to defend WCW Nitro at Starrcade in his match against Eric Bischoff. Zbyszko definitely has his priorities in order. Disco Inferno defended his TV title against Yuji Nagata. If Prince AK can beat Nagata, then Disco should have no issues at all. Disco's now being built up by the commentators as a fully fledged babyface, but we've seen this happen before and nothing comes of it. Disco started off hot, but Sonny Ono helped Nagata out a little on the outside. Nagata then went in control and he used every shortcut imaginable to keep the Inferno down, but Disco came back with a swinging neckbreaker before Sonny Ono once again got involved in the match. This was a mistake because Ono ends up taking a chartbuster. Disco's then able to hit Nagata with his finisher, and look at the reaction.
1, 2, he's still the champ.
People don't like Disco nowadays, I get it, but saying that he didn't get reactions is just flat out bullshit. Both the internet fan echo chamber and the WWE have made us think that certain things happened a certain way or certain performers were more disliked than others. I do hope Reliving the War has provided you guys with more examples like this that are contrary to popular belief, because it's amazing what you can learn by just watching things as they happen week after week. Next up, we have Fit Finlay and his shit haircut versus Dean Malenko. Eddie Guerrero provided commentary once again, and Guerrero wanted to get a closer look at the action this time around. Dean was able to stop Eddie from interfering, but that led Finlay to hitting Dean with the Mongo Spike. What, the move's called the Mongo Spike, guys, come on. Fit Finlay wins the match, and it wasn't all that great. Schiavone says on commentary that Eddie Guerrero faces Ultimo Dragon tonight on Nitro, but he doesn't. The match doesn't take place because WCW are absolutely awful at putting together 3-hour shows. Psychosis and La Parka then teamed up to take on Rey Mysterio and Juventud Guerrera. Psychosis has his mask back this week and La Parka pressed start to get his alternate attire. The babyface team won the match and it was absolutely fantastic. The spots these 4 men put together were awesome, like this lion salt from Rey Mysterio, this double somersault plancha, and look at this, I must have watched this about 10 times. Juvi counters a top rope slam with a power slam in midair. I'm not sure if Guerrero was actually trying to counter with a Juvi driver, but it still looked awesome. The match ends with Rey performing a springboard head scissors to the outside while Juvi lands his 450 splash on Psychosis. A great way to end the first 60 minutes of Monday Nitro. The Undertaker gets interviewed by Michael Cole to start off Raw this week, and on Nitro we have a Ric Flair promo. Michael Cole announces that the Undertaker's going to face Shawn Michaels for the WWF Championship at the Royal Rumble pay-per-view, and it's going to be a casket match. Taker says nothing's been settled after his last 2 matches with HBK on pay-per-view. HBK thought he had the world in his hands when he won the title, but he's going to have to once again look into the eyes of the Reaper, and Taker knows Shawn can't beat him one-on-one. Undertaker says his history in casket matches is legendary. He's only lost 1 casket match and it took 10 guys to do it. HBK doesn't have 10 friends, so at the Royal Rumble next month, someone's gonna rest in peace. The lights go out in the arena, Kane's music plays, and here comes the Big Red Machine along with Paul Bearer. The two get in the ring, and Paul says this is a nice holiday portrait, the only thing missing is the parents that Undertaker murdered. Oh, Kane suffered for 20 years and it's all the Undertaker's fault. And all the agony the World Wrestling Federation superstars are currently going through is also the Undertaker's fault. So Paul wants to give the Phenom one more chance to be a man and step up to the plate. Kane slaps the Undertaker, he goes to do it again, but the Undertaker stops his little brother. The two have a stare down and the Undertaker decides to walk away. The Undertaker still refuses to fight his brother, but at least he's defending himself now. Over on Nitro, Mean Gene's in the ring with Chief Snyder and Major Barnes of the Charlotte PD. Looks like we have a new jobber tag team, guys, Orderly Conduct. Doug Dillinger's here too, retired policeman from Charlotte PD, and you might be wondering what's going on here, but it all makes sense in a moment, or maybe it won't. Mean Gene's got a surprise for the audience tonight. Arn Anderson's in the arena, and the Enforcer looks a little emotional as he gets a great reaction from the Charlotte audience. Arn says he bought a house just down the road, but inside this WCW ring in the Independence Arena is his real home. Arn says it's good to be here just for a little while. 3 months ago, Curt Hennig robbed the Charlotte fans of seeing Ric Flair perform, but Hennig should have thought twice about what he did at War Games. This feud is a long way from over. Anderson then invites Flair down to the ring, and there's no time for horseman business because Flair wants to talk about a police memorial, the Charlotte Fallen Officer Memorial that Flair just saw earlier that day. On behalf of WCW, Flair says the memorial's great and Flair presents the Chief with a check for 25 grand. The Chief then talks about police officers who lost their lives and he thanks WCW for the beer money. And then the boys in blue get out of the ring so Slick Rick can do some nation. Thank God. Flair calls out Curt Hennig. The Nature Boy wants a match tonight and he wants to take out Hennig before Starrcade. We shouldn't be surprised, WCW love putting on Nitro matches that were also being actively promoted for pay-per-view. Flair says Curt and the whole NWO simply can't beat him in Charlotte. So there you go, Hennig vs Flair tonight on Monday Nitro. Taka Michinoku versus Jerry Lawler on Raw. JJ Dillon has a few things to say on Nitro. So Taka wants a little payback for that attack last week, but it looks like Jerry isn't going to take his opponent seriously at all. He dumps Taka on the mat and he laughs his ass off. Taka then takes a knife-edge chop, but Michinoku manages to get out of harm's way by landing on his feet after a moonsault, and Lawler takes a hip toss. Jim Ross then promotes the upcoming UFC's Ultimate Japan event featuring the likes of Frank Shamrock and Tank Abbott. It's interesting to see WWF advertise UFC events during this time period. Lawler taunts Taka and Taka makes the King pay. We see Taka's trademark dive from the top rope to the outside, but Lawler comes back with a dropkick inside the ropes. JR jokes that we just saw the King's first dropkick of the 90s. Taka hits a dropkick of his own. The two competitors then try to dropkick each other and that doesn't work out too well, so Lawler ends up getting hit on the back. Taka goes up for a moonsault and Lawler rolls out of the way when avoiding the attack. Taka makes full contact but Jerry still no-sells it. We see a suplex from the King followed by a back body drop. The King wrenches down on Taka's head and neck. Taka gets dumped out of the ring, and when he gets back in, he takes a pile driver. That should be the match all over, right? Well, no. The King goes for his second rope fist drop, but he misses. Taka delivers the Michinoku driver, but Brian Christopher shows up and it's going to be a DQ. Taka manages to fight off both guys and he ducks out of the way when Christopher tries to land a right hand, resulting in the King getting punched in the face. Not a great match on Raw's War, to be honest. On Nitro, JJ Dillon says Eric Bischoff's trying to get out of the Zbyszko Starrcade match ever since it was announced last week. Eric shows up and he says he isn't a wrestler, he never said he was a wrestler. Zbyszko outweighs him by about 60 pounds and Zbyszko's a former tag team champion. Bischoff wants Dillon to agree to a few terms, saying as he isn't an in-ring performer. He wants legal punches, legal kicks and knockouts in the Starrcade match. Basically, things that can happen in any wrestling match because who the fuck cares about the rules. Dillon says the match is going to take place and he agrees to Bischoff's demands. But if Bischoff wants to bring his martial arts background into this match, then Dillon wants submissions added to the bout. So let's get this straight. Closed fist punches are legal, which we see in practically every wrestling match. Kicks to the head are legal, which we also see frequently. And knockouts and submissions can end the bout too. WCW, man, WCW. I'm guessing pinfalls don't count, but if you haven't seen the Starrcade vs Zbyszko match, keep all these rules in mind. It's a fucking mess. The Raw cuts a promo next on Raw while Scott Hall vs Chris Jericho takes place on Nitro. Rock introduces himself as the undisputed Intercontinental Champion, the People's Champion, and the best damn IC champ there ever was. Farouk tries to say something, but The Rock cuts him off.
And you know what?
Hey, with all due respect, the champ is talking.
Rock says the champ's unhappy because that gutless thief in the night Steve Austin stole the Rock's Intercontinental title. So, as the undisputed IC champion, Rock orders Austin to come to the ring and give Rock his belt back. Stone Cold comes out and he doesn't have the belt. Austin says Rock mustn't pay attention because nobody orders Steve Austin around. He says Rock's a piece of trash and he only forfeited the belt last week because he was in a good mood and he was showing The Rock a little mercy. But if Rock wants to find out where his title belt is, he should grab a monitor and pay attention to Raw a little later on. Rock's way over his head for messing with the 316 and Rock just doesn't know any better. Austin leaves and Rock says Stone Cold has 60 minutes to return with Rock's property or Stone Cold will face the consequences. The nation will hunt Austin down if the belt isn't brought back to the People's Champ. Farouk doesn't look too amused at the end of the promo. The Rock even orders Farouk to head back up the ramp along with D'Lo and Kama. On Nitro, Scott Hall conducts his survey and the audience is not here to see the NWO. They cheer loudly for WCW while booing the New World Order relentlessly. Remember that last Hall vs Jericho match? Hall defying Bischoff's orders to give Jericho the win? Yeah, well, this was the payback. Jericho hit the lion salt very early on, but Scott kicked out and the bad guy hit his signature fall-away slam. The two then traded running corner clotheslines with Jericho getting the better of Hall, but a back elbow puts an end to that nonsense and Jericho hits the mat. Hall performs the choke slam, he then mocks the Giant a little, Jericho then takes the outsider's edge and that's it all over. Larry Zbyszko isn't amused. I should mention too that on Saturday night, it was announced that Zbyszko will get a match against Scott Hall if Larry defeats Bischoff at Starrcade. So in that Starrcade bout, WCW Nitro's on the line, a match with the bad guy is also on the line, closed fist punches, kicks to the head, knockouts and submissions are all allowed. Does this match really need anything more? Dude Love vs Road Dogg is our next Raw match, while over on Nitro we've got Steve McMichael vs Meng. Meng makes his entrance and he waits for Big Mongo, but Steve doesn't come out. We go backstage and Goldberg's knocked the big man out, a little payback for World War III. JJ Dillon tells Goldberg to get out to the ring and fight the Menger. Goldberg thinks he's hard attacking people from behind so he can go out and face the toughest SOB in WCW. Goldberg's like, no problem lad. He walks through the curtain and he begins marching down to the ring, but then Mongo wakes up and Goldberg gets jumped. The two have a brawl and security jump in to break it up, so Mongo versus Meng doesn't happen and neither does Goldberg versus Meng. Goldberg hasn't wrestled on Nitro since back in October, but let's check in on the streak. Yeah, Goldberg had a match on the last episode of WCW Main Event. He wrestled Manny Fernandez, so the real streak count now stands at 10-0. Over on Raw, Billy Gunn does all the talking during the New Age Outlaws entrance, and it isn't as good as the Road Dogg's introductions.
Oh, you didn't know? You
guys.
Dude Love wants some revenge after what happened last week. James makes fun of the Dudester, but a back elbow sends James to the canvas and Dude Love grabs a headlock. James comes back with a knee to the midsection, but Foley's right back up. Mick slides out of the ring and he gets a free shot in on Billy Gunn, but the Road Dogg makes Foley pay and then Gunn gets a little payback. Back in the ring we see Jesse James doing the worm and it doesn't lead to a pinfall victory. So Jesse gets up, he lands a dropkick, but then he summons his inner real Double J and he starts acting the fucking maggot, leading to Dude Love applying the mandible claw. Jesse falls out of the ring and Dude Love starts ripping out his hair. It looks like he's turning into mankind before our very eyes. Mighty Morphin Mick Foley. Let's call this version of Mick Foley Man Love. Man Love attacks both James and Gunn on the outside, and back in the ring James takes a ton of right hands. Man Love then begins rocking back and forth, but then he gets to his feet and he starts dancing a little. Looks like we're back to Dude Love. Dude Love hits sweet shin music followed by the double arm DDT and Foley wins the match. BA Billy Gunn tries to attack Foley after the bout, but Foley fights Gunn off and the two end up on the outside following a clothesline. On the rampway, Jesse James arrives to back up his tag team partner. The tag champs double suplex Mick and then they try to push Mick off the stage, but Mick stays put. The crowd are chanting for professional lifesavers L.O.D. to make the save, but they're on a smoke break right now and Mick has no one to help him. Foley tries to fight Gunn and James off, but he ends up taking a DDT from Billy. Foley slowly gets back to his feet, but then these outlaws shove the referee into Mick and Foley goes flying off the stage. The table set up on the floor doesn't break and the landing looks rough. James and Gunn look concerned. Foley doesn't move while on the floor. We think the champs are going to show a little compassion, but no. They lay in a ton of kicks and they tell Foley to never mess with them again. Mark Henry has his debut WWF match next against the Brooklyn Brawler, while on Nitro we've got the Steiners versus Conan and Scott Norton. Scotty Steiner dominated Conan at the beginning of the bout and both men tagged out fairly quickly. Big boys Rick Steiner and Flash Norton then went to work, but immediately this happened.
In the wrestlers.
That was scary. You can see Norton and the referee having a small moment of panic, but it looks like Rick's okay for now, and Norton goes down after a backdrop. We then see a middle rope Steiner line and Rick now looks absolutely fine. The match goes ahead. Norton suplexes Rick off the middle rope with ease and then Conan completely forgets himself and he jumps in to take over. He must have thought he was in a trios match or something because he gets sent back to his corner by referee Mickey J. Eventually though the match breaks down as usual with all four guys in the ring and Conan gets set up for the Steiner Bulldog. Vincent jumps in the ring and the Steiners win via disqualification. Ray Traylor ends up running down to chase off these three NWO goons, and that was it. Nothing really notable except that bump that Rick took. I do like the Steiner brothers a lot, but gotta say too, this isn't the first time we have seen a close call like this from Rick Steiner. On Raw, it's hard to believe that Big Mark Henry has been signed to the WWF since 1996, yet he's only wrestled one televised match for the company, and that was against Jerry Lawler back at In Your House Mind Games. Mark had to rehab a broken ankle, and he's finally ready to make a name for himself in the World Wrestling Federation. The outcome of this one's a foregone conclusion, of course, but it's interesting seeing a match that must have been rehearsed to death. Mark really couldn't slip up in this bout, and he done pretty well too, thanks to the Brawler keeping him right. You can see Lombardi making sure Mark's in the right position for the next spots, and you can also see Lombardi preparing for what's to follow, and the match turns out very safe. Some may even call it a bit boring, but all Mark had to do was get through it while looking dominant, and that's exactly what happened. Mark ends up winning his debut Raw match with a bear hug. During this match, Jim Ross announced that Steve Austin left the arena, but he invited a WWF cameraman to come along with him. Sounds like we're going to see Austin on the road a little later on. Vince McMahon calls Owen Hart to the ring next on Raw, while Booker T takes on Macho Man Randy Savage. I'm kinda in two minds about this Nitro match. On one hand, it's awesome seeing Booker get more singles matches and getting matches against big names, but on the other hand, he's wrestling Macho Man Randy Savage, and Randy Savage in the NWO usually destroys his opponents on Nitro. Booker hangs in there with the Macho Man and Savage finds himself on the mat while Booker extends the arm. Booker manages to keep the hold locked in after a nice double arm drag spot, but it eventually gets broke up in the corner. Still, Booker keeps the pressure on with his flying forearm and the match spills to the outside. Booker throws Macho into the crowd and this boy here can't believe it. It's his lucky day. Back in the ring, Macho Man goes down after a back elbow, and this is going too well. We even see a spinneroonie and Booker's jumping sidekick, but the match goes back to the outside, and this is when Macho starts fighting back. Booker throws himself into the guardrail, and Savage hits Booker with a plastic chair. Booker then gets dropped on the guardrail, Randy drops the double axe handle, and the punishment continues with Booker getting thrown into the ring steps. Inside the ring, Macho delivers a hard clothesline to the back of the head, and then a fan tries to get in the ring. Big mistake, brother, big mistake. You know, this kind of thing happens quite often on Nitro, and this isn't the last time it happens on this episode either, so Doug Dillinger really needs to step up his game. Randy misses a leapfrog guillotine, and Booker replies with a spinning sidekick. The ref then gets taken out after Randy falls on top of him, but Booker keeps the pressure on with a scissors kick. Book goes up for the hangover, but Liz grabs his foot. Macho then knocks Booker out of the ring. He uses that plastic chair again to do a little damage, and back inside the ring, Macho delivers the elbow drop. Liz wakes up the referee, and Macho Man Randy Savage wins via pinfall. At least Savage didn't hit 3 or 4 elbow drops on Booker like he usually does, but still, a predictable outcome on Monday Nitro. Vince McMahon's in the ring, and he says he knows Owen Hart's in the arena tonight, and McMahon tells Owen that he's been endangering the safety of ringside fans by launching these attacks from the crowd, and he's endangering the safety of WWF superstars. Vince says he couldn't care less about Shawn Michaels, but that's not the point. McMahon says Owen's actions will not be tolerated. Vince reminds Owen that he's still under contract, and Vince is ordering, there's that word again, Vince is ordering Owen to get in the ring and have a discussion. Owen shows up, he makes his way through the crowd looking like an absolute badass. He's got a new look going on, and it seems like he couldn't care less about what Vince has to say, but he gets in the ring and he hears McMahon out. Vince wants to know who the hell Owen thinks he is, and Owen isn't going to back down here. Owen wonders who the hell Vince thinks he is before saying he doesn't owe Vince a thing. Owen says he's sick and tired of trying to please everyone else, and the bullshit stops here. Owen says Bret Bulldog and Neidhart did what they had to do, and now it's time for Owen to do what he needs to do, and that's to remain in the World Wrestling Federation. Owen pokes Vince in the chest while saying he's been breaking his back for 9 years trying to earn a reputation in the WWF, and he's not going to let anyone run him out of the company. Vince assumes that Owen's talking about Shawn Michaels, but then McMahon says that this is really about the World Wrestling Federation Championship, a championship that's eluded Owen during his entire career. Owen says he couldn't give a shit about the belt, it's a piece of leather with tin on it. Owen says this is real life, it's Owen's reputation and it's Owen's dignity. Owen wants to make Shawn Michaels' life a living hell, and you can call Owen the sole survivor or the black sheep, he doesn't care. Shawn started this, and it's time for, quote, this little nugget to end it. Vince gets some security guards to come down to the ring while telling Owen that he's going to wrestle next week and he's going to walk down the rampway like every other superstar from now on. McMahon wants the security guards to take Hart away, but Owen has one last thing he wants to do. Just because he can, he grabs McMahon. Owen looks at the guy who robbed and screwed his big brother before shoving him away, and then the security guards step in and Owen leaves the ring. So the Black Heart is now part of the World Wrestling Federation. Jim Ross says Owen has never been as popular as he is right now, and it sounds like Owen only has one thing on his mind: getting his hands on Shawn Michaels. Chris Benoit continues his feud with Raven's Flock by taking on the swashbuckling Scotty Riggs, while on Raw, Tom Brandi takes on the Sultan. Again, it was supposed to be Raven who wrestled this match, but the Flock's leader is currently hanging out in a playground or something, I don't know. Benoit throws Scotty out of the ring and he gets distracted by the Flock, allowing Riggs to briefly take advantage. Benoit takes a corner clothesline, but a few knife-edge chops puts Chris back in control, and Riggs takes a front suplex on the ropes. Riggs gets in a bit more offense next when he slams Benoit to the mat by pulling Chris's hair. Last week, L.O.D wasn't allowed to do a single thing to Chris. But still, Chris performs a snapmare and he headbutts his opponent. The Flock looks on as Riggs gets chopped on the outside, but Scotty fights back and he's going to get one more chance before Benoit decides to end it. Riggs chokes Benoit on the mat before going for a splash, but Benoit gets the knees up. Chris drops Scotty with a kind of front Northern Lights suplex, I guess, and Chris then lands a diving headbutt. He then gets distracted by the Flock again, and this allows Scotty to perform a jawbreaker, but Chris counters a follow-up suplex and he makes Riggs tap out to the crippler crossface. After the match, Benoit says, quote, "The crippler nevermore." In regards to Raven, Benoit thinks the anticipation of the pain he's going to suffer at the hands of Chris is probably worse than the pain itself, and Chris then dives over the guardrail in a failed attempt to take out the flock. Raven's cronies fight back and Benoit gets dumped back over the guardrail, and back in the ring, Saturn locks in the Rings of Saturn. I'm enjoying this feud so far. Benoit wrestling different flock members to get to the final boss is pretty simple, yet it keeps things fresh every week. The Hitman match has still been the best one though. Tom Brady takes on the Sultan on Raw. We've got Tom Brady and the Brooklyn Brawler on the same show. Unreal. Brandy's got on those sky blue Rocky Maivia trunks and white boots, so he's embracing his jobbiness, and hey, there's nothing wrong with that. We like jobbers on Reliving the War, sometimes. Tom Brady thought he was all that until he took a pile driver from Big Sultan Fatu. The Italian stallion got his face stretched out a bit and he took a clothesline that turned him inside out, and then the punishment continued with a backbreaker. There's a chin lock right there, folks. Always good to see. Sultan missed a corner shoulder charge, but his super kick smacked the former Salvatore Sincere right in the head. When Brady comes back with a swinging neckbreaker, the Iron Sheik decides to jump on the apron. Tom moves out of the way and Sultan smacks Shaky Baby. And by God, Tom Brady wins with a schoolboy pin. Tom Brady celebrates like he just won the main event at WrestleMania, and the crowd did pop for the 3 count. But here comes Marvelous Mark Mero with a punch right to the nuts. The crowd chants Sable as Mero kicks Brady, but Sable doesn't come out. Mero leaves, wondering why the fans are cheering for his wife instead of cheering for the Marvelous One. JJ Dillon has another announcement to make on Nitro while The Rock promises to get his belt back on Raw. The Rock says Austin's 60 minutes are up, and the fact that Austin isn't in the ring right now shows how gutless Stone Cold truly is. Austin's pissed The Rock off, so the boys are going to go find Stone Cold and get the Intercontinental belt back. We then see Steve Austin on the Titantron. He's on a bridge and he's got the IC belt. Austin says he handed the belt to Rock, he made it easy, but tonight if Rock wants to find the belt, he's going to need a few objects. Rock's going to need a mask, a snorkel, and a regulator. He's also going to want an oxygen tank. He's going to need flippers. Austin provides Rock with a cell phone so the People's Champ can call Austin once he finds his belt. And Rock's going to need his pager so Austin can give Rock the 316 and a thumbs up once Rock's found his lost property. Austin calls Rock a piece of trash. He says he doesn't give a damn about The Rock or the WWF. So see you later, IC belt. The championship goes over the bridge. Austin says Rock can swim out and find it, or he could drown. Austin doesn't care either way. It's a great little moment in both Raw history and the history of The Rock versus Steve Austin. Good stuff. On Nitro, Mean Gene says Bischoff's throwing a tantrum backstage, and Dillon says he doesn't know why. Dillon's agreeing to all of Bischoff's stipulations, and Eric's still upset. Bischoff comes down to the ring, and now he wants to know who the referee is, for fuck's sake. Dillon says any WCW referee will be competent enough, so Randy Anderson gets announced as the official for the match. Eric says he doesn't want a fat referee, he wants a tall referee who can see everything from every angle, so Bischoff wants Kevin Nash to officiate the match. Dillon says no, and JJ says Scott Dickinson can referee the match, and Bischoff says Dillon needs to pick someone who isn't fatter than what he is. He's quite picky, this guy Eric Bischoff, isn't he? Bischoff says that Six would make a good referee, he's hurt and he can't hurt anyone else, and Dillon says no, Six isn't up to the challenge, but Dillon ends up relenting and he says he will choose one of Eric's guys to referee this Starrcade match. Eric can't believe it, the commentators can't believe it. Dillon says he'll let an NWO guy referee the match and he wants to make sure that Bischoff agrees to this. Eric gives Dillon a resounding yes, so Dillon introduces the referee for the Starrcade bout.
Bret the Hitman Hart has arrived to Nitro!
The Jam returns to Reliving the War, ladies and gentlemen. Bret Hart comes to the ring with his absolute worst entrance music, but still, the Hitman's here and he's refereeing a Zbyszko versus Bischoff match at the pay-per-view. Bret says it's great to be here, it's great to be in Ric Flair country, and you can just sense that Bret wasn't interested in officiating the match with this little bit right here.
So if you're looking for a referee, is that what you want? Referee?
Bret goes along with the script and he says he'd be honoured to be the referee, and Eric reminds Bret of his paycheck and that Bischoff and the Hitman are for life. Bret tells Eric to do what he can, win if he can, but don't look to the Hitman for help because nobody knows better than Bret what it's like to get screwed over by a referee. So Eric's on his own at Starrcade. Eric looks a little shocked. He reminds Bret of his big WCW contract, but Bret just looks at Bischoff before leaving the ring. We can talk about this baffling creative decision forever really and it won't change a thing, but you've watched 1997 along with me and you've been reminded about how good Bret was during his final year in the World Wrestling Federation, refereeing a convoluted Bischoff vs Zbyszko match in the biggest pay-per-view in WCW history almost sounds like a bad joke. Still, we're going to witness Bret's entire WCW run here on Reliving the War, and the circumstances may suck balls, but at least the Hitman's back on weekly TV. Buff Bagwell vs Lex Luger round 3 is next up on Nitro, while Vince McMahon makes history on Raw with the formal introduction of the Attitude Era. Kinda funny with all the things going on right now with McMahon in 2022, and here we are watching him usher in a new era while also becoming an on-screen character. But I'm sure you've all watched this before. The pre-tape even has its own title, The Cure for the Common Show. McMahon says the company want to open the creative envelope and entertain fans in a more contemporary manner. The WWF goes beyond sports and into the wider environment of entertainment. And Vince says the World Wrestling Federation borrows niches such as soap operas, music videos, daytime talk shows, cartoons and sitcoms. But at this point, the WWF thinks their audience is tired of having their intelligence insulted, and I'm going to clip that out for future use.
In the WWF think that you, the audience, are quite frankly tired of having your intelligence insulted.
McMahon says the fans are tired of good guys versus bad guys. The era of saying your prayers, eating your vitamins, and that works for you, brother, is definitely passé. So the WWF are embarking on a new, innovative, creative campaign. Vince says parental discretion is now advised for younger viewers who stay up late to watch Raw's War in the War Zone, while other shows such as Superstars and Livewire need no such discretion. And McMahon wraps it up by saying the WWF has been an entertainment mainstay for the past 50 years. The WWF changes with the times, and the ratings show that more fans are now tuning into Raw since this new creative direction is launched. So Vince thanks the USA Network and he thanks the fans for watching. Raw and the War Zone are definitely the cure for the common show. It's a very important piece of Raw history that confirms what we've already known for a while now. The WWF are going to get a lot more risque and they're going to tailor the Raw show for a more mature audience. Again, the timing's a little crazy here, seeing as right now in 2022, there's talk and rumours of Raw going back to a TV 14 rating. On Nitro, Buff Daddy comes to the ring when Mean Gene was wanting to interview Lex Luger. Buff says he's the total package after beating Luger last week, and Luger's probably sitting in the back scared to come out because he can't beat Buff and he won't beat Buff. Lex does come down and Buff doesn't back down. Buff's the stuff and Lex can't beat Bagwell, and I think everyone's fucking forgetting that Lex won a match against Bagwell 2 weeks ago. It was a DQ, but still. Lex says this man right here is so thoroughly pathetic. While Buff was calling himself the real total package, Luger went and got a match booked. Luger versus Bagwell's gonna happen again tonight on Nitro. Buff says you need a referee to have a match, dipshit, but Lex has it all covered. Nick Patrick's gonna do the honours. And Bagwell says this is all well and good, but you don't hop in a Ferrari and drive at full speed. You need to warm it up a little first. Lex has that covered too. Very good. The match that follows was very short, and give them credit, they worked a different match this week. Luger destroys Buff right at the opening bell and the crowd loved it. Lex delivers multiple clotheslines while Buff tries to figure out what the hell he's gonna do, but a missed corner attack gives Bagwell a much needed opening. Lex signature boot in the corner to turn things around then comes into play, and that's it over. Lex performs another clothesline, we see the power slam. Lex signals for the rack, but here comes Vincent and Scott Norton. Nick Patrick doesn't call for a DQ, instead he lets Luger fight the NWO off, and Luger ends up throwing Buff over the top rope, and Patrick then disqualifies Lex. Buff Bagwell beats Luger again, and Buff can't believe it. Big Flexi Lexi better sort this shit out. Jose Estrada takes on Steve motherfucking Blackman next on Raw. On Nitro, we've got Curt Hennig versus Ric Flair. Blackman wants the other members of Los Boricuas to leave the ringside area. They don't need to witness this absolute murder that's about to take place. Jose tries to get in a cheap shot, but Blackman answers with a crossbody that almost makes Estrada's chest explode. Blackman then kicks Estrada in the midsection, and a backbreaker makes Jose's spine turn into a giant noodle. We then see a back body drop from Blackman, and the impact almost makes a giant hole in the ring, but the ring's been reinforced tonight because the World Wrestling Federation knew that Steve motherfucking Blackman was in the house. The WWF then promote the UFC Japan show again, but Blackman's like, fuck the UFC, and Jose gets slammed right on top of the advertisement. What a guy. Blackman then strikes Jose right on the chest and his heart stops for a moment, but it starts up again after a Blackman pump kick. Remember when Vince said viewer discretion was advised for the war zone? This is exactly what he was referring to. Steve ends it with a German suplex, and Jose thought he was actually German after taking the move. That's how good Steve motherfucking Blackman truly is. Unlimited power, unlimited potential. We've got a star on our hands here, ladies and gents. Pay attention to this guy. On Nitro, Curt Hennig comes to the ring and he says he's the US champion because he's the best. Curt doesn't care who steps up to the challenge. It doesn't matter if it's Ric Flair. If the Nature Boy wants to fight tonight, then Curt's happy to oblige. Curt's bigger, he's better, he's a whole lot cooler than Flair. And no matter what anyone says or thinks, there will never be another Curt Hennig in the world of wrestling. He's absolutely 100% stalling until Nitro takes a commercial break. Flair comes out after commercials, he beats the hell out of Hennig, but this match is not going to get started because here comes Scott Hall. Flair takes care of the bad guy with a low blow, but then the rest of the NWO goons show up and the numbers are too much. Flair gets taken out with the US belt, Hennig performs his knee scissor stomp, and Flair takes the figure 4 in the middle of the ring. DDP eventually makes the save and the Steiners come out to help Rick too. A rare instance of WCW guys actually helping each other out in this war against the NWO. But it looks like the damage has been done and it looks like Flair has been re-injured. In reality, Flair was dealing with an injury since World War III and it was unclear if he'd even make it to Starrcade, but WCW went ahead and booked that cage match anyway. Curt left his US title behind and DDP challenges Curt to come back and get it. Curt doesn't bother, so it looks like we might be going back to DDP versus Hennig now that Flair and Hennig's in jeopardy. Also, 2 more fans tried to jump into the ring during the beatdown and Randy Anderson got his hands on one of the little shits. These WCW referees are not to be messed with. DX versus the Legion of Doom ends Raw this week. On Nitro, Hulk Hogan's going to close the show with a promo. Before the Raw tag team match, Shawn and Hunter think that maybe China should go after Owen Hart, seeing as HBK and Triple H took out all the other Hart family members, but the lads are going to play rock paper scissors to see who gets the honour of taking Owen out. Triple H wins, so Hunter's presumably going to have a match soon against the Black Heart. The teams make their entrances and we start off with Animal and HBK. Animal overpowers the WWF champion twice. Michaels goes down after a shoulder block and he decides to tag out. Triple H also goes down after a shoulder block and Hunter isn't too sure how to go about this. He tries a wrist lock before giving up and tagging HBK back in. Shawn enters with a double X handle and he thinks he's being pretty smart by sliding out of the ring, but he's greeted by a clothesline from Road Warrior Hawk. Hawk then dumps HBK back in the ring, Animal then clotheslines Shawn back out, and Michaels is gonna crawl back to the dressing room. These Road Warriors are just too much. Hunter exposes Shawn's ass when trying to pull HBK back by the tights. The match resumes with Hawk chopping Triple H. Michaels gets in a cheap shot from the apron, leading to Hunter performing the Harley Race knee. We then see some classic heel tag team shenanigans from DX, and we see a drop toe hold and elbow drop combo from Shawn and Hunter. HBK taunts Animal, telling the referee to slap him on the wrist, and DX's underhanded tactics are keeping them firmly in the driver's seat. After the final commercial break, Shawn and Hawk collide into each other and this leads to Animal finally getting tagged in. The Road Warrior begins cleaning house, Michaels takes a power slam, and then Billy Gunn and the Road Dogg show up. The tag champs target Hawk on the outside while Chyna gets DX disqualified with a low blow to Animal. Hawk's getting knocked out with a chloroform rag, I assume, and the Legion of Doom are just completely outnumbered here. Hawk gets thrown back in the ring where Billy Gunn proceeds to shave his mohawk. DX thinks this is awesome while Jim Ross can't believe what he's seeing. Jim Cornette says in 15 years nobody has ever treated the Road Warriors with such disrespect. All 4 men then powerbomb Animal through the announce table. This looked great by the way. And back in the ring, Billy Gunn hits a flying leg drop on Hawk. HBK wants to outdo Billy Gunn, so the showstopper performs his flying elbow drop. The New Age Outlaws and DX then have a hot dogging and grandstanding competition before James and Gunn leave the ring. Shawn says not bad as the tag champs head back up the ramp. and it's a pretty standard tag team match here, but the ending leaves a lot of questions. Maybe Shawn's considering recruiting a few new members for his D-Generation X faction. Hulk Hogan and the NWO come out, and Tony Schiavone points out that Bret Hart isn't here with the rest of the boys. Bischoff says another one bites the dust in regards to Ric Flair, and Hogan says we just saw another fine example of why you shouldn't mess with the New World Order. The crowd's popping for some reason. The rest of the NWO are looking at the entranceway, but Hogan carries on as normal, saying Sting's afraid of him and Sting won't show up to the building. But the problem is, Sting's already at the entranceway. The fans can see him, the NWO can see him. Hogan's just continuing his promo, and you can see Eric Bischoff's pissed off in the background. They completely messed up the timing here. The lights go out and we see a shit Sting in the rafters. The lights come back on and another fan tries to jump in the ring. Jesus, you Charlotte boys love to fight, don't you? The lights go out again, but the next Sting can't be found by the cameraman, so they just say fuck it and they show the real Sting standing at the top of the WCW Nitro entrance set. It's a great visual for sure, a great bit of footage that WCW could use over and over again, but the whole setup for this moment was completely messed up, and it's a shame too. Hogan says Sting's too afraid to come down to the ring. The number one contender then climbs down and he begins walking towards the NWO, and then Nitro fades to black. A great idea, but the execution was pretty bad. Raw had better promos this week, whereas the action in the ring on Nitro was slightly better. It was good seeing Bret Hart again, but I have to go with Raw again for this week's winner of Reliving the War. The Attitude Era promo is highly significant. Austin throwing the IC belt over the bridge is well remembered, and the main event wasn't too bad either. It's also quite well remembered. Nitro dropped the ball with the closing of their show this week, and the only match I really cared about was Booker T versus Randy Savage. Riggs versus Benoit wasn't bad either, but nothing special, although I did enjoy the Cruiserweight tag team match. WCW are struggling with these 3-hour shows, and it seems like they had better control over this in the past. God help them when Thunder makes its debut in a few weeks. So Raw has 52 points, Nitro has 47 points, and we've got 13 ties on the board. Both shows had a slight drop in viewership. Raw got a 2.7 and Nitro got a 4.1. It's also worth noting that this is the last rating in the 2s that Raw would get during the remainder of the Monday Night War. Next week, the WWF presents a special holiday episode of Raw, and Sergeant Slaughter makes an announcement that could potentially destroy D-Generation X, and we see what happened when Stone Cold met Santa Claus. On TNT, we get to see a glimpse of what NWO Nitro could look like if Bischoff beats Larry Zbyszko at Starrcade, as the heel faction completely take over the second half of the show. I hope to see you all next week. Thank you very much for watching Reliving the War, and take care.